5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? It's Peter No, wait. It's Dan Canes, back with another Atlas Tuesday telecast. Hope everybody out there is doing great. We have a special guest today, Ilya Klishin. Thank you so much for joining us, Ilya. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you.
Cool. Ilya is a great friend and huge lens aficionado, so it's great to have another fan of lenses here in Atlas today. And we have a special treat in store for everyone out there. We're going to be looking at two very unusual and fascinating and beautiful vintage anamorphic zoom lenses. And then we're also going to look at a Mercury series from Atlas, a 42 mil, right? So before we get too deep in it, anybody out there want to play some trivia? I think we have a trivia question thanks to Aldis, and just want to also give a quick shout out to B for handling our technical production today. We've got Aldis handling our live stream questions along with Joshua. Thank you so much, B, Joshua, and Aldis for joining us and helping make sure things are running smoothly, make us look good, you know what I mean? Got to look great on camera. I'm trying. Anyway, so yeah, we've got a quick trivia question before we start looking at these beautiful anamorphic zooms and a Mercury series, and running through different qualities of the lenses, talking about some of our favorite lenses, lens history a little bit, and taking questions and requests from you out in the world to see what you'd like to have us do with these lenses and, you know, kind of compare and contrast. So our first trivia question is, and you're going to win a free Atlas hat if you get the answer right. Be the first to answer in the comments with the correct answer, and you'll take home an Atlas Lensco hat. The first question is, what are the two basic types of glass used to make a lens? So just two basic glass types. Throw that in the comments and win a free hat. All this is going to help make sure we get that squared away. And while we do that, we'll introduce our first lens up. So, Ilya, what are we looking at right now?
We're looking for first ever made, I think so, anamorphic zoom, which produced in France in, I think it was in early 60s, like 62, something like that. Yeah, and it's a really cool lens.
Yeah, so this is first of all, it's based on an Angenieux 35 to 140 zoom, and that zoom on its own is a T3.5. It's pretty much one of the first cinema zooms ever made that's specific to the motion picture industry. And it's a parfocal zoom, so it'll hold your focus position through the zoom range. But then a French group took that Angenieux zoom and created this awesome CinemaScope adapter for it. And some people call this system Franscope. The engravings on the lens say Brevet, which means patented in French. So a lot of people think Brevet is the brand name, but Brevet just means patented in French. That's a fun trivia question. But I love the naming convention. So on this side it says Suprematic, like it doesn't get more supreme than a Suprematic, right? And then on the other side it says Zoomscope. And one of the things that makes this lens fascinating is right now we're at about 60 mil on the zoom, and so you could see Ilya looking great and looking very French today. You know, some of the classic films made with this lens, if you know any of the films made with this lens in France, drop those in the comments. We'll shout you out. But a lot of the French New Wave films use this lens. So I'm really excited to have this in the Atlas Lensco Museum. We actually are fortunate enough to have 2 copies of this lens, and only 20 of these lenses were ever made, we believe. That's what we've heard.
Like less than 20, I think. This one, the Ilko said, like he saw the number 19. What number is yours? Like 15? Or?
This one is number 14,
14.
I think.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, this is 14.
It's super rare.
And then I think the other one we have is number 19.
Oh, really?
So that one we got from Amsterdam, actually.
Yeah.
And Ilko had serviced that one. So shout out Ilko Rose. Hope you're doing great out there. Hope you're in the stream. And thank you for servicing my first Brevet Suprematic that's in the collection. And then huge shout out to Charles Pinto, who made it possible for us to acquire the second Suprematic that we've got in the collection, and we're restoring that one right now. So that one was in a little bit rougher condition, and so we're doing a few adjustments to it, making sure it's focused correctly. But what makes this lens interesting, besides it's so complex, I mean, look at the appearance of it. I'll pan over so you could just see on this camera. It has this beautiful little follow focus knob on both sides for the camera assistant. And one of the things that makes this lens fascinating is that it's a single focus lens. So the anamorphic group is pinned at a known focus position, and then the anamorphic portion takes over the entire focus control of the lens, but it still stays parfocal. And so, you know, it's very convenient to use. This is actually the one that Ilko serviced, so it has a nice gear ring on it. And you can actually uncouple the bayonet of the anamorphic group from the zoom. So if you wanted to go back to using just the zoom by itself, you could theoretically do that, but it makes it easy to service and take apart. But I just love the aesthetic of it. I love the way that the anodizing has started to fade and look kind of like gunmetal color. Not only is it an aesthetically beautiful piece to look at, but to me, this makes some of the best anamorphic images, not because it's sharp, but because it just has a really dreamy, beautiful quality to it. And it can focus incredibly close. So I'll zoom out a little bit and show, basically this won't cover open gate in 4perf at the widest end. So you can see, you know, we can start seeing the inside of the anamorphic group there around 40 mil. And originally this was pinned at 40 at the widest, so it would be locked off from going to 35. But once you get out to 35, you really start to see the inside of the elements. So you're getting kind of portholing. But at 40, you should be able to cover 240 delivery out of a 266 aspect ratio. And another fascinating thing about this lens is that it's a 2x CinemaScope format lens, but it does have a little bit of mumps. So when you get to close focus, things start to lose the anamorphic squeeze, people's face get wider, but you can get incredibly close. So Ilya, if you don't mind coming over, I can actually focus on you and show just how close we can get. You could actually lean in a little bit. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so it's basically practically a macro. So at 50 mil, you could see Ilya is still beautifully in focus and the bokeh looks great. And like the geometry of his face, considering that it does have a little bit of mumps, he still looks really normal and handsome. And you have this like soft spherical aberration glow in his hair there. You know, we're getting a little bit of top light. But I find it to be just incredible how close we can focus with a lens from 1961 or 1962. Yeah. That's anamorphic, that's a zoom. So you're really getting so much cool stuff in one lens, basically. And to me, this is like one of the key inspirations for the qualities of a Mercury lens. You know, it does start to fall apart on the long end of the zoom, so it's not quite as collimated at the long end. Like if we get into like the 100 mil range, you could still get a pretty good image. It's not quite resolving, and it's a little bit astigmatic, so there's some astigmatism in there still. But if we stop down a little bit around a 4, you know, I'd say this was passable on the film stocks of 1961 or 1962. But in modern imaging, it might be a little bit, you know, either desirable if you like that kind of softness. But I like the bokeh. Look at that beautiful bokeh. And I'll widen out to about 75 mil. So at 75, you know, the astigmatism drops off and it really is quite crisp, actually. for a lens from an anamorphic lens from 1961. And another one of my favorite characteristics of this lens is the flare. So I'll just tilt up and show some of the off-axis and on-axis flare. So you can see, can you see from where you're sitting, Ilya?
Yeah, it's a bit reflecting, but
What do you think? There's a little bit of rainbow that's more from the spherical group, but like, look at that beautiful golden flare. And I'll stop down a little bit.
It looks crazy. Yeah, you could see the bit rainbow.
Hard against the window there to see, but I'll pan over this way a little bit. But just a lot of character, and that golden amber flare color is really nice to me. Shout out in the comments whether you prefer warm flares, cool flares, or neutral flares, or if you have another flare color or style that, you know, I like the way that the flares break up in this too. See how it kind of turns into different bubbles, and you're getting flare in the spherical group and in the anamorphic group, so it's really like quite attractive to me.
I really like the color of flares.
Right?
Yeah.
And even these, like, you know, we're against the lamp, but we're not looking right into it. You can see these bubbles that are showing up in the duvetine there. So we've got the solid kind of secondary flares there. And you do have a little bit of over compression on the sides. Like, you know, you can see Ilya getting a little bit skinnier there on the edge, but like, you typically wouldn't want to be framing for that anyway, because if you're delivering for 240 out of a 266 aspect ratio negative,
it's not so soft on corners.
Quite impressive, right? I think it's neat. So one of the interesting things about this zoom is the way that it kind of came to life, right? Like, it started as an Angenieux zoom, and then another group of engineers and optical designers took that lens and then built an anamorphic group onto it. So it's sort of a very complex anamorphic adapter. And a good friend of mine actually has the version of Franscope system that is made for primes.
Wow.
So it's similar, but the way that it focuses, it doesn't have this unique focus knob. This is kind of more similar to the way like a CinemaScope Baltar is built, with that built-in follow focus knob, which is neat. But he's got Cooks that have a Franscope adapter and then a bayonet that you can interchange the anamorphic group with the primes. And shout out Chapin Hall. He's actually Atlas customer #1. So longtime friend of mine. We started volunteering at the ASC together over 10 years ago, doing ASC master classes. And there's a really fantastic ASC master class happening this week right now. So I'm here with all you instead of hanging out at the master class, but I'm having fun here on the stream today anyway, like with Ilya, chilling. But yeah, where were we going with that? Like, basically, it's amazing to see the evolution of this zoom. And then if we look at some of the stuff that was happening in the Soviet Union at that time, cinematography and cinema were also very important to their culture. And sort of like during the Cold War, it was sort of a battle of like culture, art, and science. And to me, that's what movies are all about, is like
almost for engineers.
Right? And for engineers too, right? Yeah. So it's really interesting to see this and then compare it to the Lomo Foton-A, which also, we were talking about this off camera, but it started life as a zoom independently of an anamorphic zoom, right?
Yeah, before 1964. Yeah, it was fun that they made the anamorphic attachment in 1964, and it a bit not like far away from age of production of this like French lens. I think this is not like copy of French lens. I think they kind of inspired by, maybe, we don't know, because it was so hard to communicate between two countries in those days, like before. And I think almost the attachment, this is a different attachment, like optically.
Yeah, the whole optical design is entirely different,
Yeah,
right?
totally different.
So if anybody wants to see anything else with the Suprematic, hit us in the comments with what you'd like to see. We're going to switch over to the Lomo Foton-A now, and then we can talk about the difference in the way that the systems work and sort of look at the different qualities and the different ways that they perform. And so I'm going to do a quick lens change. But while we do that, as we said, this lens is sort of a single focus design where the anamorphic group takes over all of the focusing with the zoom set at a fixed focus position. So I'm just going to pop this off. Thank you. And Ilya, you've actually used the Foton-A for some shoots before, right? I've never actually used a Foton-A on a job, and I've never used the Suprematic on a job yet, but
Yeah.
maybe someday I'll be fortunate enough to get to do that.
I never used Foton-A for my job. I always used like Lomo square front because it's lighter. Yeah, it's not the zoom photon. It's cool and it's light, but with anamorphic attachment, I think for me it's a bit heavy. Yeah,
It's definitely heavy to use out in the field, and then if you don't have something to support or lock the anamorphic group to the zoom, this one has been modified by someone either in Japan or prior to going to Japan. So this one I acquired from Pepe, shout out Pepe, and he'd actually acquired it from a cinematographer in Japan who had calibrated it and had it serviced and pretty well maintained for a lens of this age. So according to the serial number, this particular lens example is from 1975, and the anamorphic group on this lens is actually coupled to the zoom so that they focus together.
it's like a bifocator.
It's like a synchronized focus system. Yeah. So when you're focusing the zoom group, you're also focusing the anamorphic group and adjusting the spacing of the anamorphic elements. And so we've actually placed Ilya at minimum focus distance, which is like right around 5 feet. So we're like, just around 5.5 feet from
1.5
the image
meters,
plane.
something
Yeah,
like
1.5 meters for those in the metric system. Correct, thank you. And yeah, this lens is a 37 to 140. So rather than starting at 35, this starts at 37. And then you can see that this actually has much better coverage in terms of the anamorphic group covering the whole range of the zoom.
In catalog, they say 40. Not 37.
Oh,
Yeah,
they say
40.
best performance at 40? That's funny. But it does cover really quite well, even in full 4-perf mode on the Venice here. So we're shooting on a Sony Venice, and you're seeing us live through a 72 millimeter Mercury on the Alexa Mini LF. So 2 of the world's top of the line cinema cameras with 2 lenses from mid-century, last century. Really fun to be looking at this and experiencing it. And I find that the focus quality actually holds better through the zoom range on this one. I mean, it's definitely a little bit astigmatic on the long end here.
It should to be.
Right? But it stays quite well resolved and less astigmatic, even around 125 millimeter on the zoom, and then zooming all the way out to 37 here, it really looks crisp. And the mumps don't really show up too bad. I think it looks very well normalized. And then, to get closer focus, we would just use diopters, which I didn't bring today, but...
Do you have it like original one from Foton-A?
No, the square diopters.
Oh,
that would be neat to add to the set. So there's some clip-ons, right?
Yeah,
it's like a
it's
square clip-on diopter. Really beautiful looking piece. And I think the aesthetic quality of the lens, like the physical build of the lens, is also equally beautiful but different. You get some of this sort of the brass color coming through. And I love these scalloped rings, that the processing after the anodizing took place This is such a like 50s to 60s design aesthetic for a lens, as far as like just looking at the beauty of the lens.
Have you seen prototype of Foton-A, like attachment?
No.
It looks better than this one. It's amazing. Like
Wow, what does that
yeah.
one look like?
It's a bit round. Like it's cool.
That sounds amazing. Where could someone see that if they wanted to?
In Russia, in Moscow, some guys they have it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, do you have any idea how many photon zoom lenses may have been made in history, or how many photon anamorphic zoom lenses? It's hard to say, right?
It's hard to say. I think photon lenses attachments, anamorphic attachments, they did maybe no more 50, I think so, or totally no more than
Wow.
100. Yeah, but they did a lot of photons, like spherical zooms. I think it was in production for almost 20 years, like since 72, close to 72, I don't know actually. And I think, and the last one I saw it was like 1989.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and yours is 1965.
75. Yeah.
This is attachment, and the
Oh, the
zoom is
zoom.
like 85, something like that.
Oh, so it's a much later zoom.
Oh, it looks like
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah, you're right. We should look at the serial number on this.
I think it's down a bit. Okay, never mind.
Well, they might not have been born together, but they ended up together, right? So they're together now. That's what matters, right?
Yeah, 85.
85. Cool. So that's
Yeah.
a pretty late model zoom, and then a much earlier anamorphic attachment. So it's interesting to see, you know, over time as things get used, the way that they combine or recombine into new.
What number of the lens for this year do you have? Like, is it
This is number 14.
14?
For the anamorphic group.
75, yeah, 14. I think, yeah, maybe close to 50 or something, like between 50 and 100 lenses.
Wow. I mean, that's still quite few in terms of the scope of Soviet lens production, right? Because so
Yeah.
many lenses were produced.
Yeah. After that, they tried to skip like front attachments, and they changed the way to use like more rare attachments, anamorphic attachment. And they produced after 20 years first like zoom anamorphic zoom. It was, the name was OPF 19. It's really cool. Have you
Is
seen
that
it?
the one with the bellows
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
front? Oh yeah, I've seen that. That's a really nice one.
Yeah.
They have one of those at Old Fast Glass, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that the range on that is 40 to 120, or I can't remember.
20,
20 to,
I think, no.
I can't remember.
We have such a huge like catalog of Russian, like Soviet Union lenses. I think we have a lot of them, and sometimes it could be tricky to figure out about like the catalogs.
Which version and which,
Yeah.
many variants, right?
Yeah, many variants. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I think it's such a fascinating part of history, and, you know, history that we can experience today and make movies, make content. And so I think, you know, that's interesting because that's part of how we met, is that not only do we have a passion for movie making, but we have a passion for the technology and for the lenses and movie cameras, right?
Yeah.
And so I initially met Ilya through another Ilya, Ilya Volkov, who's quite an optical master, optical genius. And, you know, you were just talking with Ilya. What is he up to now?
He's in Kazakhstan now, and his company, Opti Workshop, moved to Kazakhstan from Russia, and they're like in the process to set up new workshop. Please, come to Kazakhstan, and I'll be soon in Kazakhstan. And shout out to Ilya and Dimi from Opti Workshop.
And yes, shout out to everyone in Kazakhstan, and stay safe, be well. And I feel like I have to go to Kazakhstan because, you know, the confluence of sort of like Korean culture
Oh.
also is in Kazakhstan a little
Yeah.
bit. So there's people who are ethnically Korean and then Balkan or, Eastern European. It's sort of like a mixture of different cultures that meet in Kazakhstan, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So, that's kind of like my family. Like, my wife is Korean and I'm from, Eastern Bloc, at least partly. So my kids are kind of like American version of Kazakhstan kids, if you think about it. Not to get too weird on camera, but anyway, shout out Kazakhstan and shout out Ilya and Dimi, and thank you so much for coming on today, Ilya. And we're really excited to see what OptoWorks is going to be doing. Ilya is a great lens service master, and I believe they're also working on rehousing of Soviet lenses, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be really exciting. Personally, I'm excited to say on camera that I have some Soviet 65 millimeter format lenses that I'm planning on having rehoused with OptoWorks.
Like Kinrosars.
Yeah, like the larger
Yeah.
format. Really excited about those. So that's something we could get into in another stream, perhaps, once they're rehoused.
Yeah, for sure. Together with Ilya and Dimi, I think it will be a super interesting conversation about like whole vintage like catalog around the world.
And even like the methodologies of adjusting and tuning the lenses,
Yeah.
the philosophy for building the lenses. So I have to say that one of the things that inspired me when we were starting Atlas Lens Co. is actually sort of the approach in the way that Soviet lenses were built to be rugged. If you look at the cameras and the lenses, they were meant to be serviceable even in very adverse or difficult conditions. If you're freezing, if you're in the middle of a field and nowhere, and you're just having a hard time, if something's going wrong, you need to be able to service it to be able to get the film running, right? So when we were building the Orion series, we said these need to be lenses that are easy to service, easy to repair, and not something that people should be afraid of servicing in the back of a camera truck. If you're on set and somebody drops the lens, God forbid, you could still get the shot and get through the day. And so we designed them to be very robust and easy to maintain, and I think that's something that's really
If
cool.
you will broke this one, you will be in problem like for a month, I think so, because you never know what's inside. Like, yeah.
Maybe some traps in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one other thing I'd like to show with this lens before we move on to the Mercury 42, and if anybody out there in the stream is wanting to see anything specific, so you can see some of the bokeh shape in that lamp in the highlights on the lamp in the background there, and I'll zoom through so you can see the way that the bokeh changes shape there. So it gets extra skinny out towards the edge. In the middle, it's really nice and ovular. And then off to the edge, it's got just a little bit of coma and flattening out to be extra thin. But personally, I find it really attractive and really nice. And then the flare on this lens is super different than the Brevet Suprematic, but also a nice light shade of pale blue instead of the warm gold.
Yeah.
And you get those rainbow flares from some unpolished surfaces of metal or sort of slightly more reflective metalwork, where the contrast isn't necessarily able to be.
I think there is a mix of coatings because they used maybe like physical for attachment and chemical for spherical group.
So the deposition method for the coating is different between the
Spherical.
anamorphic group and the spherical group. So that makes it really interesting to observe the way that those coatings interact.
Wow, such a great.
And I'll stop down a little bit too to make these pop out just a little bit more. Wow. Anybody in the comments have any requests or questions? I love these actually, even though this is like not exclusive to anamorphic lenses by any means. Like I call this the eyelash flare or God's eye flare. Like if you're out surfing and you just pop your head out of the water and the sun is hitting your eyelashes.
Yeah.
Do you ever get a vibe like that when you're surfing? Ilya loves to surf, and he's also a great snowboarder. So if you love snowboarding or surfing, hit this guy up. I personally am not a great snowboarder. I always get hurt.
But you're good in skateboarding.
I'm okay at skateboarding. I'm not like all this. All this can do a hard flip. I can't do a hard flip, but I might work on my tray flip, get back into skating. So, yeah, like to me, this is just something that I see in my life in nature, and then to see it in a lens is really fun to me and inspiring.
Two quick questions from chat. We have, what's the close focus on this lens?
So the close focus on the Foton-A is about 1.5 meters or 1.6 meters, which works out to basically between 5 and 6 feet. And so I've got Ilya at the minimum focus distance to the lens now.
But you could use like diopters.
Yeah, but if you want to get closer, you could use a diopter, of course. And maybe next stream I'll pull out some diopters. I forgot to bring that today.
We also have a request to see a center framed backlit subject.
Okay, here's Mr. Ilya. Center frame. Backlight, I mean, we have him edge lit right now. I could walk the lamp over if you want more hard backlight. What do you guys think? Hit us.
Throw on the 1K.
Oh yeah, great idea. Thank you, B. B always with the best ideas. So to give you an idea of where we're at in the zoom range, first I have to find the witness mark on this thing. Okay, there's 37. So this is 75 mil. And you can see we've got 1K in a giant 10K head. So we've got a 1K tungsten lamp and a 10K head, kind of off axis, 3/4 to Ilya, and he's center frame there. And stop wise, I was stopped down. This is at a 4.3 on the T-stop. I'll throw the ND on to get a little there. So we're at an N6, 800 ASA, T 4.3 with Ilya center frame there. And if you want me to pan around a little bit, I'll zoom in and out. So this is 75 mil. I'll zoom out to 37. And he's at minimum focus there. So, you know, that's kind of our minimum focus position without a diopter. So he's about 6 feet away. And I'll slowly zoom in. And like the bottom corner is slightly out, but like sides, that's pretty good.
And don't forget, this is a lens from 1960s.
Yeah, the design is from the 1960s, and then you were saying we think the anamorphic attachment was designed in the early 70s, right? Or
No,
late
in
60s?
1964.
64.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Wow. Yeah, I'm a fan of this one. I'd say like it's actually a tough call to decide whether I like the image quality of this or the Brevet Suprematic.
I haven't seen Brevet before. Like, thank you for this opportunity, but I will prefer Lomo, for sure. I'm a big fan of Lomo. Because it's like a bifurcator. It's synchronized between focus. It's easy to use, and it works from almost from 40 mils, like in the zoom. But this one works just from 50s or
45 and on,
50.
depending on what you're trying to get. Like if you're delivering 240 instead of 266, but then you know you just have to think about your framing. Yeah, we have a question coming in from all this.
Michael Bello-Glazov is asking, what is the weight of Foton-A with anamorphic adapter?
Oh, with an anamorphic adapter is heavy. It's around 6 kilo, I think, with supports. Like we could check it.
Let's see. I'll take the lens off. I ate my Wheaties this morning, so let's see. Oh, we have this beautiful catalog that
from 1969.
From 1969, Ilya has gifted this catalog to the Atlas Anamorphic Museum. So we have this beautiful piece of history documenting so many different lenses. It's insane. Feel really grateful to have that here with us. Let's see. I ate my Wheaties this morning. Actually, I didn't. I fasted. But this lens, yeah, you could definitely get your reps in.
I think around 4 kilo.
4 kilo. So this is about 8
3, 4.
pounds. Yeah, that feels like about 8 pounds. So yeah, 8.
I saw specification, it was like 7 or 7, but it was maybe with rig system, like
All the support.
yeah, all the support.
Yeah.
But you could see like here's just 3 kilo. It
This
looks
one is
heavier.
definitely heavier.
Yeah,
so
for
this
sure.
is the Angenieux with the Brevet. This is at least 15 pounds, or what would that be, like 7, 8 kilo? 7 or 8 kilograms, 15 pounds.
And look at this
And-
shape, like it's like a rocket.
Yeah. How can you go wrong with this beauty? I mean, they're both beautiful in their own way, but the zooms, I would say, you know, like you said, we don't necessarily think that they're directly like a reverse engineering as far as the zoom group, but probably inspired by, right? So, you know, picking that architectural concept and then doing the best to design your own version of it, would you say?
Yeah, I think so, but it's hard to say really. But oops, do you need help?
Yeah, maybe.
You might have to loosen the support. I was having some issues getting it
There we go.
consistent.
Not anything. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would loosen this
The
one
center,
here.
the center
Just to
bracket.
get like the up and down a little bit,
Mm.
and you can get this lined up and then retighten.
Cool. So here we are with the Brevet Suprematic. And the lens is marked at T3.5. And this is at 40 mil. So you can see it's vignetting already within 266, but this is basically where you could deliver for 240 or 235.
I think it looks darker, no?
I would say it's,
The ND.
oh
Well,
yeah,
like, no, it's
IND.
like
It's definitely darker, like slightly less transmission. And I think it might have yellowed from age. You know, the anamorphic group is definitely a little bit darker. So it's marked 3.5, but the transmission value, we should actually T-stop it. We're not going to do that on camera right now, but in the future I will T-stop it. I haven't done that yet.
they have T-stop measuring here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Do you measure like it in the center or like on the whole area?
It's the whole field
Whoa.
in the T-stop system that we have.
That's cool.
Distinctly different. I mean, this has a lot of vertical breathing, and I really like the bouquet shape. Like you can see, it's very ovular. It does still get a little bit skinny out to the edge, but the ovular quality of the bouquet is very attractive. And it just gets a little bit cat's eye on the long end. Like, but it's super astigmatic in terms of, instead of suprematic, it's super astigmatic when you're on the long end. So I'd say definitely some points for the Lomo there. But once you get down to around 100 mil, the astigmatism is much more cleaned up. And the flares on this are totally wild. But when we put up the Mercury, you'll see maybe where some of our inspiration for the flare style came from. I would say I'm certainly inspired by this lens. I think
Oh,
it's
really?
really cool, yeah. And you know, one point that this definitely can beat is, do you mind showing us close focus? So we can focus much closer. So we're not in minimum focus yet. Like, you know, this is about 4 feet from the image plane right now with Ilya there. And you can see the breathing quality. See how the... There we go. And then lean in just a little more if you're comfortable. So you can actually come in a little more.
Oh,
So we're, yeah, basically we're within 3 feet of the image plane right now. He's like 2.5 feet, or yeah, maybe only 16 inches from the front surface of the lens.
Yeah,
So
it's
from the
very
image
close.
plane, you know, less than 3 feet, which is pretty wild. I'd say there's more spherical aberration with this lens. See, it has like a little bit of a glow in general. Yeah. Do we have any requests from the stream? Anybody want to see anything special? And when you watch some of those French New Wave movies, some of these characteristics are even apparent in the movies. If I had done better research before the stream, I'd be able to name a specific movie that I can see in my mind, but I can't name it right now because I had a big day today already. So
From Jean-Luc Godard.
definitely a Godard film, yeah.
A woman.
Go ahead, throw some out.
A woman, something like I forgot.
Contempt, maybe?
Contempt, yeah, totally. And one more.
Do we have a question from all this coming in?
Karuna Huda is asking, is there distortion at the edges?
Is there distortion at the edges of the Brevet Suprematic? Yes, you
Yes.
actually have sort of over compression of the edges. So you can see Ilya is actually skinnier at the edge there. So sort of a little bit of a fishbowl effect.
Is it 45 now?
We are right around 50. So if I go out to, this will be nice because we're looking in the window, so you can see much more of the effect of the curvature. So the lens has strong barrel distortion, but you also have the corners, the sides are basically getting more anamorphic compression than the center. One more question coming in from the stream.
Henry Orley is asking, why did the French anamorphics have amber flares?
Why did the French anamorphics have amber flares? So thank you, shout out Henry for tuning in, and great question. It has to do with the coating technology that they were using. So, you know, people were using typically magnesium fluoride coating. We haven't analyzed the chemical composition
Like chemical, yeah.
or mineral composition of these coatings, but you know, for the Foton, we know that that's mostly magnesium fluoride coating in the anamorphic
Because
group.
you should rotate when you're doing coating for lens. If you're doing with
Like vapor deposition? Or
oh, no. I think this is for this not spherical, this anamorphic attachment. They used chemical.
like a chemical bath?
Not. It's like. No. They used physical, like it's vaporized, like in a box. Yeah.
Like evaporative
Yeah,
coating?
it's like.
Yeah, in a bell jar, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So under
Yeah.
vacuum.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
And then they do a vapor deposition, basically, where
And
the chemicals are evaporated.
And with this coating, you could control the color of the flares, like you are doing with Mercury's. Yep.
Yeah, but you know, people didn't really want
Orange.
flares, so it wasn't that they did this on purpose. Flares in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s weren't something that people were designing to build into the lens on purpose. It was something that was sort of a remnant of the technical limitations of the lens and the technical limitations of the materials. So people weren't like, oh, I want this lens to have blue flares, or I want this lens to have amber flares. What they were concerned about most was getting the most light transmission through the lens, and then having sort of a neutral color balance at the end, ideally with the film stocks that they were using at the time. And so, you know, we look back at the way that these things were done, and we try to pay homage to them while still having the highest level of light transmission, and you know, sort of the best contrast, the best balance of contrast and resolution, color and light transmission, but kind of to give lenses character. So lenses weren't being engineered for the aesthetic quality of the look in quite the same way that we are focused on lens aesthetics now. I would say, at least that's my belief. What do you think?
Oh, I'm sorry. What's the question?
I was just saying, like, I don't think that the lenses were being engineered for flare colors
Yeah, for
intentionally.
sure.
It's just to make the best image quality
It
with
was
the technology. they have.
limited by technology, yeah, because you have an opportunity to use like much like more difficult coatings or this, and they did like what they can do in those ages, like in the century, yeah.
So with what technologies were available,
They don't care
they did the
about
best.
flares at all. Like I think they more cares about like, how to say, maybe weight. Try to just maybe. Yeah, I think they care more about weight. What do you think about
quality, I think quality, image quality, so like sharpness, resolution, light transmission.
It was hard to say like quality and resolution in the first of year of production, like zoom anamorphic lenses. But yeah, I think it's very important. Yeah, it's also very important. Yes.
So we're fortunate to live in a time where we can maybe look back at the history and learn from the things that have come before us and say, what do we like about certain vintage lenses? What do we not like? And then try to create a path forward for what we think are great, convenient, easy to use modern lenses, but with some of the qualities that we like from vintage lenses, whether those are intentional or unintentional. All of those things sort of are additive to combine into making the aesthetic qualities of what we try to do here at Atlas. So with that point, why don't we put a Mercury 42 mil up, and if you have other questions about the zooms, go ahead and shout those out through the stream, and Aldous is just going to pass us another question while I do a lens swap.
Also, yeah, I
Which
think I'm.
color flares do you guys personally prefer?
I think that there's different. What do you prefer, Ilya? You prefer blue
In
cool flares?
anamorphic, I really don't prefer like to show flares in anamorphic view, because I think this is like super specific, and it could be not like special for any type of videos. It could be, by the way, like it's like. Do you get it? What I
Yeah, I think so. To kind of like, I think what you're saying is that you prefer not to focus on flares when
Yeah.
shooting anamorphic, and that that's just sort of an additive quality that you may not necessarily want to
Yeah, for
use
sure.
because it's just so specific to the lens, or it might show what the lens is showing.
Yes.
You're more about the story
Yeah.
and crafting an image, and then if a flare happens, it happens. But
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of
And
like that too.
I think I would like prefer maybe red, like orange flares than blue one. For me, it's like warmer is better. What do you think?
I like,
Blue one.
personally, I like cool flares when they're on a Panavision C series lens.
Yeah.
So one of the things that inspired me, besides the beautiful Lomo anamorphics that have typically that cool blue, cyan blue
The
flare,
classic one.
is Panavision C series, which often have either sort of a light blue or sometimes slightly into magenta flare color. And so I find those inspiring and interesting, but I think that, like you, when I'm shooting anamorphic, I don't always focus on flare being sort of the first thing. It's more like
It could
in the
be-
right moment, maybe.
It
but
could be annoying.
it can
if
be
you-
over the top for sure. So it's great to have different choices, I think. And, you know, I really like our silver edition lenses because those are just taking on the color of the light source. Although, you know, for some people those might flare too much, and I can kind of get behind that thought. Can somebody help me adjust this?
So we want to go. Want to open it?
I wanted to find what the, could we do like, can you do 1.5 in 4.3?
We can't. I think maybe 6.5. User settings, top here.
Oh, sweet.
So that's only 1 and 2. So
Okay.
we'll have to try a different.
Okay, we'll go open gate then.
For sure. User, and then we just go 5.
Oh, killer. Thank you. So yes,
Brevet has like a flange halfway through the lens. We always thought it was made for blimp housing, but what do you think?
So the question coming in from online is that the Brevet has a flange halfway through the lens. I would say, yeah, that's totally possible that this kind of midway bayonet could be for a blimp housing to prevent sound from coming out of the camera body. I also thought maybe this could be for attaching to different different primes. So like the prime locking system that's on Chapin's lens was rebuilt by TLS, so it's totally different. But I do like that that theory about the blimp, because you can see you've got this really nice locating pin and locating feature, and it's just one of those things that's lost to the sands of time. So if anybody knows and has like detailed information, I'd love to find a manual for one of these Suprematic zooms. That would be really neat to have a print manual or even just a PDF scan of it. Another neat feature of this is it has a filter tray built in here in the middle. So you could put gel filters, or if somebody's made a hard gel filter, you could drop a filter in to ND the lens.
Like in Kinoptic.
Yeah. Shout out Kinoptic. I love
Thank you.
those.
Yeah,
Under celebrated, I would say. I think those need more attention, more love. Really beautiful lenses.
Yeah.
So yeah, now what we're going to look at is the 42 Mercury from Atlas. And so we've got the Venison open gate mode now. And we've got Ilya center punch there. And I'm at a 4. And I can turn up the ND a little bit. And you can see sort of the direct inspiration, I would say, of the color of the flare and the coating design for the Mercury is directly inspired by that Brevet Suprematic.
I like it.
And like the Brevet, there's a little bit of slightly stronger squeeze out at the far edge, but not as strong as the Brevet.
42.
Yeah, we're on the 42 here. But these lenses are designed to be near apochromatic, so it's very well color corrected. It has really good close focus. If you don't mind, if you want to come up close, we could actually show how close we can close focus here.
There is a tugboat.
So he actually
Closer?
has even, a little bit, just a hair closer. There you go. So that's close focus there. And these are 1.5 squeeze rather than 2 times squeeze. And part of that is that you get more delivery aspect ratio possibilities. And you could sit back to be more comfortable. More delivery aspect ratio possibilities for modern sensor design. So these lenses will work with both film and digital cameras. But the reason we went with a 1.5 squeeze is that if you're using a camera that is constrained to recording in a 16:9 mode, that goes out to a 2.66:1 directly with that mode. So that's very akin to the way a 2 times anamorphic will work with a 4-perf piece of film or a 4-perf 4x3 sensor area. And so it's paying homage to CinemaScope ratio, but it's also great for delivering 2:1 for Netflix. If you're using a 3x2 or 4x3 sensor, you also get, if you're using 3x2, you get 2.25:1, which is just slightly wider than that 2:1 Univisium format that's preferred by a lot of online streaming. Also Storaro's favorite format, Univisium 2:1. And that's kind of like, to me, a logical widescreen format, really great for common top framing, for delivery to a variety of mediums at the same time. So how do you like this lens? Like, you could say what you like and don't like about it. I'd love to hear.
I like how it's small. Like, it's super small. It's super lightweight, and the quality image is super crisp. I think is it in focus, because I can see like the.
We're at a 4 now, so what I'm going to do is actually ND down, and then
Oh, I
we'll
see.
open up so you can see the
Is it
fall
wide?
off.
It's not wide open.
No, no. So I'll go wide open for you. So, you know, center is super sharp actually,
Oh yeah.
and then it will start to fall off towards the edge. So you can see your fingertips are starting to lose resolution out there near the
Yeah.
edge. And that's field curvature, and that's part of the design intentionally. So some people love field curvature, some people hate it. It's one of my favorite things personally about some of the Cooke Pancro lenses
Yeah, for
is
sure.
the way that the field curves. And so, you know, you'll have something that's more center punched, but things
And
will
this
start
is
to fall off.
For sure, it's anamorphic lenses, which should be like in a horizontal way with less astigmatism. It's like more astigmatism in horizontal axle, yeah? Am I right?
Yeah,
Like in
definitely.
English, yeah.
Mhm.
Than in vertical way. It should be. I like it more. Yeah, it's good for portrait.
And then if I frame him sort of 2/3 here, you know, he's well in focus there, and we're wide open. So if we were doing a 2-shot at this distance, you know, he's about 1.5, 1.6 meters, or roughly 6 feet away from the image plane. We can hold him in focus. We could have another person equally opposite in the same plane.
It's wide open, and how much is it?
T 2.2.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah. And we'll show off the bokeh a little bit. So, you know, normally when you have a bright window like that up in the corner, you'll see a lot more chromatic aberration with most lenses as you focus through both lateral or axial color. And then you can look at the bokeh quality. So you still get this really nice oval bokeh. You can see in the highlights on the lamp, the speculars. And we have another question coming in from online, so happy to take that question. Thank you, Aldous.
Can you explain the field curvature more? Which direction is the depth of field bending?
Yeah, so field curvature means that at any given plane of focus, so if we're focused at at 1.6 meters here, or roughly 5 to 6 feet, the curvature will actually curve inwards on the sides. So the center is in focus, but as you get closer on the sides, it starts to come into focus slightly more. So his best focus is in the center right now, but out in the corners you'll see that I'm closer to the image plane than him, but my hand is in focus here. So the mark might be best for him, but actually, like, I'm about a foot closer to the lens, roughly, with my ring here.
Like wide angle adapter.
Kind of like that, yeah.
And this.
Yeah, exactly. So it bows in a dish shape with the center of the dish being further from the lens and the sides of the dish being closer to the lens and the image plane, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answers the question, and happy to take any more questions or show anybody else anything they want to see. I think we've been streaming for about an hour, and so I'm going to throw out one more question. I hope somebody got the answer to the first question right and won a free Atlas Lens Co. hat. And the second question we have today, remind me of the question? What year was Atlas Lens Co. founded? Alternatively, I got another question. Who created the T-stop system? Answer either of those two questions, but not both. Whoever can answer who created the T-stop light transmission measurement system, or what year Atlas Lens Co. was founded, in the comments, and win a free Atlas Lens Co. hat. And Ilya, I really appreciate you coming on the stream today. It's been so fun having you. Hopefully this was relaxing and great way to start the day.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and sorry a bit for my English, like it's not my native English, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You were a natural. You were perfect. Do you have anything else you want to say, or anybody else you want to mention, or any questions, comments?
I wanted to shout out to my mentors Ilya and Dimi, and also for my whole family. Yes, and also for you, Dan, for this opportunity to look at this beautiful French lens, because I never seen it before, in person. It's really, thank you for this such a crazy history of anamorphic zoom lenses.
My pleasure, and we'll get to play with it more off camera too.
Oh,
And
no
then one
question.
more thing to say is that every Wednesday here at Atlas Lens Co. in Glendale, California, we have an open house event called Wednesday Lens Day. It's a big Wednesday. Come out, bring your own camera, bring your own lenses, or use ours, and have a free coffee on us, talk lenses, hang out with the community, meet other filmmakers, and chill. And that's anytime from 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. here in Glendale, California at Atlas Lens Co. Hit us in the comments if you need directions. We're happy to help. And we hope to see you at Wednesday Lens Day tomorrow or any Wednesday. And we have one more question coming in from online that we're happy to take.
Dina's asking, does that mean the object which plays closer to the lens may be affected by distortion more?
I would say no to that question. So the resolution quality, the MTF or modulus transfer function is affected more by field curvature, but distortion shouldn't really be affected by the distance. So distortion, when I'm talking about distortion, I mean geometric distortion. So if you look at sort of the shape of a object like this solid, so we've got a floppy in the background there. You'll notice as I focus through, the distortion of the floppy isn't really changing, but you can see that the top of it has barrel curvature to it. And if I put it on the side of the frame, you can see that it curves again in barrel distortion. And again, slight vertical barrel distortion, but all Atlas lenses have barrel distortion rather than pincushion distortion or mustache distortion. And we find that to be more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. But quality of distortion won't really be affected by focal position. Things that will be affected by focus position are bokeh. So it's not as evident in this lens, but if you look, if we switch back to the stream, so from this camera, you can see in the lamp in the upper left side of the frame that the bokeh changes shape, and that is called coma. So the bokeh is taking on a geometric coma shape, and this is something that can be seen in many lenses. It's called Petzval effect. So the Petzval is sort of a swirl to the bokeh and sort of a streaking of the bokeh depending on where it is in the frame, but that doesn't really affect the in-plane portion of the image. So you can see that the spot changes shape, but anywhere within that thirds, it's a nice out of focus oval. But yeah, focus position won't really affect distortion for in-focus objects. Hopefully that helps answer that question. And I appreciate that question, because anything people want to know and understand and experience about the lenses, we're always happy to address directly, either through the stream or in person here. Come on down, test the lenses out, make your own test footage, and we can't wait to see what people create with the Atlas lenses. We're always super excited and pleased to see new footage coming in daily from every place in the world using Atlas Orions, and some people who are fortunate enough to have used the Atlas Mercury prototypes. We're really excited to get people out there their Mercury lenses. We're sorry we haven't started shipping them yet, but it's really important to get the quality right and make enough of them to make people satisfied and make them great. So can't wait to see everybody using Mercuries. Keep using Orions, and we have a lot of great surprises in store for you. So stick around. Hope you're having a great Tuesday no matter where you are in the world. And thank you so much again, technical production team, B, Aldis, Joshua, and thank you again, Ilya, for joining us on the stream.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a lovely Tuesday no matter where you are, and see you on Wednesday Lens Day.